I know you have some more to say here. Take us through this game one.
Who do you think is the MVP? Well, we talked about so much hype about this guy. And the fact that he got bodied by Lewis so many times in this game, you would think that maybe Sanford has, maybe we can call it quits for Sanford in this particular game. But no, he went back. I mean, there was even a Lord team fight where you can argue that Sanford's positioning was bad, but in that last set of plays, the genes for split pushing as well as the genes for like just making good decisions in the latter portions just rain through for Sanford with that impure rage Benedetta. Let's look at the highlights. So many highlights in this 27-minute bout between Echo and Omega. But up top, you can see that Lewis already is rising to the occasion. Zaida, great outplay. This is the dream scenario for the Barras that we're talking about. He's able to take out West as well as Matt with his play. Eventually, he was taken out, but he still managed to get the Lord before he went down. And then Omega, piggybacking off of what Lewis is doing, as well as Ryle on this particular game. They have found a lot of openings around the Lord dances. And it will continue to happen. I mean, Zaida's just getting punished. Had it not been for Sanji just taking out Marked and eventually taking out Lewis, this game would have been totally in Omega's hands. But it didn't happen in the end.
Again, if you look at this game, a lot of the times it was quite even, for the most part. And for Smart Omega specifically, they had a great lineup. I loved what they brought to the table here, and they executed it pretty well for the majority of the game. And maybe this comes down to some of that experience, that world stage experience.
Yeah.
Some of the pressure that came out here from Echo.
Yeah, that's sad for the Sanji just flexing their in-game knowledge as well as their resilience as a player. I mean, the championship caliber kind of resilience in this game where already everything is going badly towards Echo, but they recovered. And important items here, Rose Gold Meteor, prioritized by the members of Echo. That's actually the Outplayed had to sell it eventually. Yeah, but you get the idea. They needed a way to kind of last against Omega, especially because Omega did go for magic damage. And then if you're looking at Lewis with this play, I totally understand why he went for this kind of itemization. Endless battle in the end, and he's outputting the necessary damage as an EXP laner. But then in the end, they lost.
I want to highlight how good Sanji played there in the last part of that. Obviously,
Yes.
they already did like immaculate, very creative decision making on the top side, but the way Sanji flanked, when have you seen a Novaria flank from the back?
Exactly.
What's that about?
It's an amazing place.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, like, even at times in that last team fight exchange,
Insane, man.
Sanji had to make his own decisions. Like, do I drop, the damage down the line through the mid lane so that eventually in the weeks going on? But Wolf, take us through this ending series in game 2.
Yeah. And with no surprise at all, he is the MVP. Might I remind everyone that this is a 0-2 start for Sanford, but even after the first 3 minutes of the game, that was sort of a disaster for Echo. Think about it, there was 1,000 gold lead for the side of Omega. They have recovered. And it all started with the second turtle of the game where Sanford, despite being down 0-2, landed a very nice usage of the ultimate, of the Black Dragon form, which we can see through the highlights. But this is now around the 8-minute mark where it is now JP's time to choose the right targets to go for the hard guard. And in this case, it was Sanford. They went in for Matt, committed the retribution, and paved the way for Outplayed. Still managed to keep his stacks with the Art of Thievery, and then output the damage with that Blazing Duet. They eventually lose Sanford, but they took 3 and also the Lord afterwards. And then another fight. In this case, Sanford was the recipient of the Heart Guard instead of Zaida, the first target of Omega. And it was very much understandable why Omega went for this play, but Echo were just prepared for this. I mean, even when you see Zaida alone, he is never alone. And it was definitely a surprise for Omega to see Sanford in that clash. And the last clash, the Angela Claude in its prime. Full item on both the Angela as well as this Claude to really just destroy the formation of Omega. Then eventually finish the game. It was just Omega. Oh, sorry. It was just Echo showing us their prowess as a team that's already won the championship. the veteran decision making coming out from JP was perfect, and Echo wins against Omega once again.
Interesting too. Again, with these, both games relatively longer than what we've seen at least today, but ultimately, I like the way that Echo has been playing. Even with the inclusion of Zaida and Outplayed, we know that these are both very talented players. But ultimately, like the synergy there from Echo that we've seen for games and even seasons now is still there, even with this change. And as we look upon like week 2 ahead of us, Smart Omega, I feel like for themselves, they have to kind of figure out how to break through. There's some wall or like barrier holding them back in terms of, let's say, finishing games or getting things through, right? Relatively, their plan, their play style it works, but why do they struggle at certain points in the game where they cannot capitalize on those leads that they build themselves? I think that's one, again, whether this was the theme of today or just the match with TNC and AP Bren, like what can they learn? I think week 1 in general, even up to week 2, a lot of the MPL teams here have to learn or have to look at what they learned from their matchups, especially against teams like this for Smart Omega against Echo.
And I think for teams like Echo that have already established a good structure when it comes to their drafting, as well as the way that they operate when it comes to team fights,